When you're tracing the gun for layout, I use a pencil that's got a tape wrap around it that gives me the appropriate standoff to allow for the thickness of the fabric. In certain areas, I'm going to expand that margin just enough to where things like the sights won't grab when someone places the pistol in the case, or some of the tighter spots. You want to give them an extra little bit of relief as you trace around, just for clearance in the case. You'll still get a snug fit from the fabric in the areas that matter, that are going to hold the pistol securely, but you give it a little extra clearance for that time when someone is lifting the pistol out of the case or putting it back into the case. Tracing around the gun, you try and keep your pencil as vertical as possible. Remember that the thickness of the fabric and the amount of sponginess or give that it has is going to give you a little bit of forgiveness in this. If you happen to be just a tiny bit tight in one spot or a little bit loose in another spot, the fabric is probably going to make up all of those gaps. Okay, once this is traced, you can look at these lines and see that there are a lot of areas in here that are going to be very tight. A little pinch point like this is not going to be something that's easy to line the fabric around. So we soften these lines. We'll turn that into a small radius rather than that tight pinch point. Same thing back here. You can open this line up a little bit to give yourself a little more clearance, and it'll allow you to work fabric back into that lining without sacrificing fit. You're just giving yourself a little more room to work with. When you have a tight little tuck like at the bottom of this grip safety, it's a lot easier to get the fabric to go around a gentle curve. In the case of the checkering on the front strap, it tends to grab the fabric a little bit, and it can cause the fabric to fray or pill a little bit. So I like to give the checkering a little bit of a standoff. Probably a little less than a 1/16 of an inch. But it helps it to keep from snagging and possibly pulling the fabric off its base. You can only ask so much of fabric and glue. Going around the front of the pistol, there's about 5 different steps. I like to reduce that number down to one little riser that allows you to clear the muzzle. And I'm going to go up and over the sights and give myself extra clearance, because the sights always seem to be the one spot where pistols seem to damage the fabric in the case. So now that these are traced out, we can go cut these on the scroll saw. Okay, placing this cloth, what we're going to do is lay the board down and press it. And then I have to trim the corners. A little time sensitive as the glue sets. And once all 4 sides have been seated, this is trimmed down. So to begin lining these compartments, we need to make some cuts in the fabric to allow for the least thickness, since we've pretty well calculated the thickness of the lining to fit the gun. We need to take up the least amount of that space by folding the fabric over. What that means is you can't really have 2-layer overlaps, so you have to be careful how the fabric lays, and you make a series of cuts. beauty of French fitting a case is that you don't have to make the fabric fit all the way around, because you just can't do that. It won't stretch, it won't cover all of these things. So each compartment is then lined with a tape or a ribbon that covers all the gaps where the fabric is folded into the case. They are strips of the fabric that are folded over on themselves and glued together. Then they're masked very close to the edge, heavily glued on the back, because this porous fabric really soaks the glue, and what you're sticking to in most cases around this form is more of that fabric. So when you get a really good bond, you can be a lot less concerned with the gun dragging the fabric or damaging it or rolling the trim piece into the cavity. Watch this box come together, and some of the questions that I get about these boxes that maybe I can answer for you are, wow, that's a great looking box. Did you make it? The answer to that question is no, I didn't make it. This is made by a company called Hillwood in London. They make this box actually as a high-end watch box, but it's burl walnut on hardwood. It's beautifully constructed. It's marvelously finished, and for the price, it's something that I couldn't put the labor into and match on my best day. It's a beautiful purpose-made box that gets repurposed when it gets to my shop. The interior is entirely gutted and tossed, and a whole new set of interiors is then built for whichever gun and accessories will be going into the box. So in this case, it has a set of ivory handled tools. These are all mounted correctly at the 50-degree or 50% mark, with half the tool above the surface and half below. Same practice on the auto pistols. They're French fit, not so tight that they can't be cleanly lifted out and replaced in the case without risking damage to the lining of the case. It's got a lined lid with the maker's label, and it's lined in a high-grade wool cloth that is very, very adherent to the glues that we use to hold things together. So it becomes a forever piece at that time.